Happy WNBA Tuesday. It's not Monday, day after Labor Day. Hey, Callie Finn, thank you for joining me today. Whew. Well, I'm curious, Callie. The Aces right now are in the middle of a 7-day break. They haven't played for a while. Do you get a break when they get a break?
Yes, I got a break. I got to go home to Sacramento. I'm from California. I live in Vegas, obviously, to cover the Aces, but I got to go home for a couple of days. Now I'm back. Obviously, they have practice today, and I will be there.
Okay.
But yeah, they took a break. Becky Hammond, she said after their last win against Atlanta, she was like, "I'm giving them 2 days off, period." And I was like, "Okay, well, I'm taking 2 days off also." So
Okay.
yes.
Well, I'm glad that you got that little break in there because it's about to get chaotic just, because the postseason is coming. So the Aces it's very, very strange scheduling right now, but they do have 7 days off, or they're in the middle
Yeah,
of that. So they're not playing again until Thursday. But
right.
the last time they played, they they tapped off, not tapped off because it's still going, but they are in the middle of a 12-game win streak. So
Yeah.
they have won 12 games straight, Callie. And I'm just
Yeah.
like, this is crazy to me, And they tied, because I think the last time you were here, I misstated it. So they tied their franchise record
Yeah.
since they moved from San Antonio. So now the 12 straight wins ties the current franchise record for Vegas. Pretty remarkable stuff, just in general. You have a 12-game win streak. That's remarkable, but it's really remarkable because of the way the Aces started this season and the way that people were talking about them. And was this possibly going to be, they're going to have to start over again and, rebuild around Asia Wilson. And now they are sitting pretty in the number 2 spot, which I think the last time you were here and we talked about it, there was a chance that they could get to 2, and they have. So now that they have gotten there, what are your thoughts, Callie, and what's the sentiment around the team?
Yeah, I mean, I think what's so interesting is that it seems like the team is feeling like, okay, this is finally where we thought we would be. They're kind of like, hey, we've made it here. Let's keep it even keel. Chelsea Gray keeps on saying in every press conference, never get too high, never get too low. And you can sense that that's like the general like messaging around the team. Obviously, I think there's a little bit of a sense of relief that they've finally hit a groove now because Becky Hammond was saying all year that she thought that it was going to come together. And there were moments, like you mentioned, where it was looking like that maybe wasn't going to happen. And I think even with, Aces president, Nikki Fargas, who was effectively, acting, I guess, as general manager when she was kind of having to defend some of the choices that the Aces made to, maybe stand pat at the trade deadline and, stick to the moves that they'd made in the offseason that had to feel turbulent, and now it's like they've kind of leveled out. And so I think that that's the sense. It's definitely interesting to see them like do everything they said they would, because I remember, I mean, like you mentioned, we're 12 games into a win streak, but I would say like maybe 8 games into it, I overheard Becky Hammond like saying like, we want the number 2 seed. Like I remember thinking like, yeah, okay, like I don't know about that, but here they are. I mean, they're tied technically with the Atlanta Dream, but they have that tiebreaker
Right.
over them for that number 2 spot, and that could really be like huge for them. Like this is a team that started this season talking about championship goals, and now it seems like maybe that's within their grasp.
Well, yeah, and again, I mean, part of the reason they could get that 2 seed, it wasn't really that crazy once I think she said it, but it was still like, you guys basically can't lose again. And I think that's sort of what was like, okay, we might have to look at you a little like, what? Because for you guys to get
Yeah,
that while it was within reach, it really meant like you couldn't lose a game, and they have not lost a
yeah,
game. But Callie, for them to actually hold on to that 2 seed, they, for the most part, need to lose out. As long as Atlanta and the Mercury right now have the same number of losses as them, and they're 2, 3, 4 in that order in the standings, like we just saw, they can't lose a game. And, there's a part of me that's like, look, if they can pull off, they have 4 games remaining, a 16-game win streak to close the season, that's remarkable. But there is a part of me that feels like they just need to have a loss. Like, I know that sounds crazy, But like sometimes when a team, like the other day, the Lynx just had a loss. And I was like, that's good because sometimes you kind of need to reset. Like when you're just winning and winning and winning, sometimes you like lose your principles. Like it's just like, oh, we're just, And maybe that's not the case for the Aces because they had such a period for so long of not playing their best. And I think they're still trying to get their defense to where it needs to be. But a 16-game win streak, just the mental fortitude that you need to have, like that's just a lot. Like if you ever talk to teams that have had these long win streaks, they start to say like how it becomes a toll because it's just like there's this extra stress, like we're undefeated and you want to keep it going, you want to keep it going. So do you know at all how they're feeling? Because it's just like they really do. Like I'm not just saying it to be dramatic. Right now, until the Dream lose a game, and also Phoenix, because they can't, Phoenix and the Dream have to have one more loss than them for them to at least have the tiebreaker over both. So do you have a sense of how they're feeling about this streak, and are they feeling any pressure? I know they want to keep the 2 seed, but just this whole streak and keeping it going.
Yeah, I mean, I think throughout the streak, I mean, you heard a lot of talk. I mean, if you're following the Aces, you realize like, okay, they played 8 games in like 15 days as part of that streak. And so I don't think they really had a lot of time to think about it, except for, after, and some moments after wins when they're like asked about the streak. Obviously, you mentioned the franchise record of the 12 games that was with the San Antonio Stars, and Becky Hammon was on that team as a point guard. And so, like, she has made jokes like, okay, well, history's made to be broken. Like, let's beat that win streak. But then when they tied it, I asked her if she kind of remembered the context of that 12-game win streak from all those years ago, which was like, man, I don't even know now. But she was saying that she didn't remember it at all. And so then I did some research to try to find the context. And I think I know why. It's because that team, their season ended in the semifinals to like the Los Angeles Sparks. And I think so it's like, yes, they were on a 12-game win streak, but of course, like she's not going to remember that. She remembers how it ended. And I think that part of where the Aces are right now is just trying to make sure that they're in a position for this win streak to not be for nothing, And right. I think that like that's going to be just really interesting. You mentioned they need to have a loss. I mean, they play the Minnesota Lynx on Thursday. That's their first game back from a long break. And we have seen throughout this whole season, and you mentioned it, like the scheduling has just been so weird. How like it can a break can be a blessing or a curse. The same way that a bunch of games in one stretch can also be positive or negative.
What do you think it is for this team? I mean, you cover them, so what do you think it is for them?
Yeah. I mean, I think that they did a really good job throughout this, like the end of that win streak when the games were literally every other day, of adjusting. You know what I mean? It's like they might have had like against the Sky, that was a game on Monday, and that there were some things that they really needed to improve before they faced the Atlanta Dream, and then they did that. They came back literally on Wednesday and beat the Dream, and I saw those improvements. But that's because you have a short amount of time. I think that I have seen a break not be super positive for this Aces team. But again, they have obviously hit a new gear since the last time they had this much time off. So it'll be interesting. I think that there's more to it than just the break. It's this Minnesota Lynx team has had the Aces number all season. And honestly, the Lynx have been kind of like a pivotal opponent for the Aces all year. If you think about how this win streak started, it started with a historic loss to the Lynx. That was a 53-point home blowout that they took that really kickstarted this whole thing. And so I guess like maybe that plays a role also. Like there are all these different factors, but in the past, the break has not been good.
Yeah, I mean, I think a team that just had a break, not 7 days, but 5 days, were the Valkyries, and Coach Natalie, a coach who used to be an assistant for the Aces. That proved to be valuable for them because they're dealing and managing injuries. But so I think to the effect that like anyone has anything lingering on the Aces, that could have been helpful. I don't know, sometimes all the little injuries players experience aren't always reported. But she also talked about how it gave her time to like really dig in. And I have to imagine the coaching staff for the Aces spent a lot of time looking at those Minnesota matchups. Becky wants the 2 seed. She wants to keep the 2 seed. So they need to get a win. They need some redemption for how they lost that game. And so, you know, they have had their number, but also like I'm just one of those people where like I just don't feel I can take a lot from a game where you get blown out the way you did. Like it's embarrassing for sure, but do I believe the Lynx are actually 53 points better than the Aces? I don't. And I know there was another blowout before that, but we also saw the very first time they matched up the season without A'ja Wilson even on the floor.
Yeah.
It was a closer game for like at least the first half. So I think the Aces have the ability to play more competitively, but you know, you talk about the Minnesota Lynx and look, they just recently got Napheesa Collier back. Mm-hmm. The Minnesota Lynx have clinched the number 1 seed already, okay? They have clinched number 1. So they technically have nothing to play for anymore. So last night they played a game and Cheryl Reeve rested Kayla McBride. I'm very curious if Cheryl is going to rest anybody for this game. You know, to me, there's a level of gamesmanship, like just rest everybody. And then the Aces don't really know how they match up because even if they win, you have the edge. And like when we played all our players, we blew them out, you know? So there's sort of that, right? But there's also, I think you do play them or you should because this could be a potential finals matchup, like based right now on where everyone falls in the standing. So if you're the Lynx and you really want to know how you match up with Vegas while they are playing better basketball, while they are playing well, I think you probably do want to play them, right? I think, but we don't know yet. So we have this game, you know, that's going to be coming up, and it's a little hard because right now we don't know. As of now, we can only approach it as though, you know, everyone's going to be playing, but we don't really know. But like you said, that 53-point blowout that the Aces experienced to this team, the number 1 team in the league, that's when they went on this, you know, massive win streak. So I'm expecting a more competitive game, Callie. I'm curious what you think because there's a lot on the line. The Aces need to keep the 2 seed, right? There's this whole backdrop of the MVP conversation, which I'm sure neither coach will admit, you know, like they're not worried or focused on that. But like there's this A'ja and Fee, and they are both like neck and neck for MVP. And so even though it shouldn't be like this, we know narratives and how it is. People are going to be looking to see how the 2 MVP candidates play against one another. And so there's just a lot, you know, riding on this game, I think.
Well, I love that you mentioned the gamesmanship of it all because I feel like that's been a huge aspect of maybe this whole kind of regular season series. Like if you look at, especially through the lens of like the MVP race, like we've yet to really have a true head-to-head kind of like matchup, like an MVP showdown. Like that just hasn't happened because of the way that this has looked. You know, like A'ja injured and then blowouts. Obviously, your Aces aren't going to play their star in those blowouts, so you're not seeing a lot of her. And so I think that it would be really interesting if this game ends up being that game finally, because we genuinely haven't had it. People try to do head to head, like, oh, you know, when the Lynx played the Aces, you know, MVP Napheesa blew them out by 53 points. Like, if you're watching the game, that's clearly like not what that looked like at all. You know what I mean? And so I think that if we could have like a true head to head, oh my gosh, it would be amazing for the conversation, you know? But I don't know that we'll get that. And I think you make a great point about, you know, like how does that benefit the Lynx? It definitely, I think, benefits the Aces in a way, because then they do get to see how they match up, how they are now. But I think maybe with the Lynx, they feel like they already have the benefit of those prior victories, maybe. I don't know.
I mean, I trust Cheryl Reeve to be a good coach, but you can't. Like, because you blew them out in every game. And the first game, A'ja Wilson didn't play, and Becky stopped playing her team in the second half. And they're on a 12-game win streak. There's no way you think you know this team like that. And so that may not matter to her. They may just say, you know, because if Vegas stays at 2, the only way they can even see each other is in the finals. So maybe you don't even worry about it. But I think you want to at least have one game against Vegas when everyone's healthy and see. So I don't know. We will see. But I'm looking forward to that game on Thursday. And I do hope that everyone is playing. I really do. And I hope that we get that MVP matchup. Really looking forward to it. Callie, thank you so much for joining me. Thank you guys for joining us on the WNBA on NBC. And make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel.